Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to another high-level match of StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a best of 5 series of Protoss versus Zerg that was recently played during the European Regionals of the ESL Masters Winter Tournament. It's a very long name for an event, but regardless, I've heard that this particular series is a banger, as after it was played, literally about a dozen or so of you have reached out and mentioned that I should really go ahead and cast this match when the replays are available. Well, they are available as of today, so I figured this is the first one I'm gonna go ahead and check out. I've got loads of games I want to go ahead and cast over the next couple of weeks. It's gonna be fun, but spawning right here in the top left-hand corner of Oceanborn. That's game number 1 in this best of 5 series. Playing with the blue Protoss pieces, we have none other than Harstem. And his opponent in the opposite corner with the red Zerg drones, he goes by the name of Reynor. Alrighty. Ooh, really? Harstem decides to go for a quick forge here after a gateway and then a scout timing that I know he generally is not that big of a fan of. This is... is this gonna be a cannon rush, really? Yep, that's what we're doing. This is an ult approach. Not really something that we've seen all too much anymore ever since they changed the way that ramps work in StarCraft 2. So once upon a time, yeah, you could wall this with only 2 pylons. These days, however, it takes 3. Okay, Reynor immediately pulling a lot of workers. Spawning pool is coming up. That's absolutely critical here, because ultimately you do need Zerglings. But this is so many of the workers now occupied to the base defense. Yep, okay, these 2 pylons are gonna end up getting cancelled. They will unlock a little bit more money here to put down additional pylons. And the ultimate goal for now is to build that photon cannon over here. Now, I don't believe that that one is going to be in range of the hatchery itself, but once it's done, and that's why those drones are trying very hard to catch that probe, once it's done, it's much easier for additional workers to, okay, one of them ends up going down, to put down indeed photons right over here. Zerglings are coming up, however. Harstem really needs to add on another pylon. He decides to go for another photon cannon there. I actually think that's a misplay. Alright, ultimately, that probe ends up going down. Everything here is powered by just a single pylon. Is this enough, though? It's about a dozen Zerglings. Yeah, he's gonna target fire it immediately. I think it... that's really close. No, it will go down. Zealot also comes across the map here, of course. It's the main advantage. Oh my god, that was actually super close, though, to Reynor getting cheesed out. I think all Harstem really needed to do was add on 1 more pylon rather than that, well, 3rd additional photon cannon over there. Or even just 1 photon cannon over here probably would have done the job, right? 1 photon cannon, 2 additional pylons, it would have been very possible. Huh. So, once upon a time, back in the early days of StarCraft, you could wall a ramp with just 2 pylons, if I'm not mistaken. At the very least with 2 barracks, with 2 bunkers. They added like unbuildable plates and all that. Anyhow, not really a strategy we see all too much anymore these days, and ultimately, okay, now Reynor is going to be able to get across the map with a bunch of his Zerglings. A nice aggressive start to this series, though. Harstem really has been looking very strong, actually, as of late. Like, if you would have shown me this matchup like a half year ago, I think I would be favoring Reynor 9 times out of 10. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful whatsoever. It's just that Reynor has been incredibly successful over the last couple of years. And, well, winning Gamers 8, right? The biggest tournament of the year so far. How many probes? 2 probes so far? Yeah, this is... certainly not a strategy I expected the Cowboy here to bring out, but it's good to see him going toe-to-toe with some of the very best players in all of StarCraft 2. Despite the fact that he's juggling many other things these days. Yeah, pretty cool. Alright. So ultimately, I do believe that these Zerglings are gonna get cleaned up. And ultimately, Reynor on the back of this is just making a lot of drones, right? He knows that his opponent is going to be running those probes around. Photon cannon here, still, well, unpowered, I guess, but still sitting there with its little head popped down. It's a little sad. It's like an ostrich over here sticking its photon cannon, you know, shooting head into the ground. Either way, eventually, it will go, yeah, it will get killed, and that's gonna shut down all of his aggression. So I'm interested here in the income advantage, yeah. So this is when those drones were not mining, and they were combat workers instead. I guess they were combat drones, right? So for about, yeah, a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes or so, they weren't achieving all too much. Now, we do have a couple of adepts coming in. But Reynor did indeed produce Zerglings here in time to deal with that as well. Ever since that aggression, though, got shut down, just barely, Reynor's had a small economical advantage because he got to send those, well, Zerglings that he had left over across the map, and he was droning very aggressively. Stargate follow-up right here from Harstem. Okay. Yeah, I don't think he's really going to be able to achieve too much with the Adepts, especially once Metabolic Boost finishes up. So ultimately, we're transitioning towards what seems to be a pretty normal game, but with a Zerg advantage. But I think Harstem at this point also is kind of frustrated, right? I mean, I don't really know exactly... I would get very tilted about that personally if I was playing the game, because that could have been a win already. That would have been one hell of a way to start a best of 5 series against one of the very best Zerg players in the world. Anyhow, Lynx are ready to go across. Third Nexus here is building. We're gonna need the defensive Oracle, so that's exactly what Harstem does. Lovely work. Stargate here in the main base is going to be spotted by the Overlord, and it will show that indeed a third Oracle here is building. I think 3 Oracles is pretty much always the right call. I'm a big fan of seeing even more than just 3, because I feel like they usually get a lot of value in, but these days Zergs are pretty keen to play, for example, Hydraling Bane as well. We see quite a few Queen Marches too, actually. I think a Queen March from here would not be a bad choice by Reynor. It's actually very good on this map, I found. Because you can kind of push over here, and then it's difficult, or you can even push over here. It's difficult for the Protoss to hold on to either the natural or the third. And after you get a pretty solid start economically, it can be one of those builds that can catch the Protoss player off guard. That being said, I don't know if Reynor is recognizing this as a game where he's actually economically in a good spot, because obviously in his mind, he wasn't mining there with like 80% of his workers for a very long time, so I don't think he's quite comfortable here, and it's always a bit of a guessing game, right? You're always dealing with incomplete information when you're playing a game of StarCraft, and you gotta make the best of the situation that you find yourself in, and apparently, it's gonna be a lair together with the +1 melee upgrade. Baneling Nest, by the way, also coming down. Alright. I know Reynor has recently been making some comments that he unhotkeyed the Baneling altogether, because he's not a big fan of it. I think that was mostly tongue-in-cheek, but apparently he's not enjoying the Baneling as much as he once used to before they got nerfed with the most recent patch. Harstem snatching another worker there. Nothing all too crazy though. Not too many workers have gone down. Templar Archives on the back of it. We've got a Prism coming up, charge, +1 ground weapons. And this is basically Harstem ready to start piling on the pressure. What will probably be with, well, Archons, maybe some High Templar as well, but certainly a whole lot of charge slots. So this is not going to be that blink follow-up that we normally see. Instead, it's going to be, yeah, very Zealot heavy. Now, Zealots are very bad against Banelings, but Banelings are very bad against Archons. So, yeah, they're also not great against High Templar. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic. And there indeed is that Hydralist then coming up. Okay. So rather than Roaches, Reynor decided to cut that corner. He skipped the Roach Warren altogether, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And he decides to go straight into the Hydralist den, while just trying to build up as many workers here as possible. Now, by the way, I've got a long list of games that I want to cast over the next few weeks. Most of them have been recommended by viewers. If you did watch some of the broadcast live, and, well, I've tried to watch as many games myself personally too. I haven't seen this particular one, but I did see many of the others. But you saw a good game, right? And you want me to go ahead and cast it, please let me know down below in the comment section. Also, if you aren't subscribed already, I got some bangers coming up over the next few weeks. So, you know, I'm just saying, you probably should go ahead and subscribe. I mean, if you want to, you don't have to. Totally optional, but it's an easy way to stay up to date with everything that I do right here on YouTube. Alright, so, what Reynor has done is effectively just build up 4 base economy with 7 gas geysers. This is on purpose. He's purposefully not taking that one. He is ready to start making tons of Hydraling Bane. There's a Dropalord coming up too. I was gonna say, I think we're gonna drop Banelings in that case. Makes a lot of sense. Maybe hit him at the front over here at the 3rd, or maybe at the 4th with your Hydraling Bane army, and then sneak out a couple Banelings over here in the natural, because this is a lot of empty space that Protoss usually does not have vision of. Storm is gonna finish up here momentarily though for the Dutchman, and always a nice thing to have. Reynor actually getting supply block here, decides to fire up like 7 Overlords all at once there for a moment, but this is going to be more than enough Overlords for the remainder of the game. Prism is waiting as well at the bottom of the map to fly in at the correct opportunity. And this is something that we see go wrong for, well, opponents of Reynor so many times that Protoss gets a little bit overeager with their Prism and they just fly it into a whole load of queens. And even though the queen DPS is not particularly high, we see it go wrong so frequently, man. Losing that Prism really sucks. Alright, here's indeed that Baneling drop. Hydras and Banes as well up north. This is mostly just a distraction, right? So Protoss right now paying very close attention to their Templar. And this is super annoying. It's one of those things that you just sort of queue up as a Zerg and you don't really pay attention. Wait, did he just also blow up a bunch of High Templar? Sorry, I decided to back off. Or to back up, rather, for like 15 seconds. This is one of those things, you just queue it up and that's about it. Did he also get value with his Banelings here at the front? Oh, no. Okay, well, at least these two do stay alive. Still, certainly not an optimal trait right there for Harstem. His army is just looking very small here compared to that of the Zerg. I mean, Reynor's not bringing in all of his units, right? Like, this is only a small chunk of his army. I almost wonder if he should be sending his entire army across the map, because there seems to be an awful lot of stuff available. Did we just... No! Did I miss it? Did we just have that Prism still flying in? Here's that Prism. So there's like 17 things happening here all at once. We had the Baneling drop in the natural. We had the Zerglings over there. We had the Banelings going down over there. And then we had the Prism! Yeah, no, it also ended up going down. GG is immediately cold. And even though that was some of the worst observing of a game of StarCraft 2 that I've recently done, it's Reynor who wins game number 1. Game number 2. Very normal openers here, this time around from both players. I've decided to fast forward through the first 2 minutes of the game because everything is normal. No cheeky forge here this time around. So, Cybernetic score here is done. What are we gonna make? A Stargate. Alrighty. This is something that Reynor can already sort of pick up on here. He knows at this point that there's no Warp Gate upgrade started yet, and that alone will already give him... There it goes. You can see how the animation changes. So, from the Zerg's point of view, it suddenly starts spinning, and it's pretty obvious that something's researching. Since the Stargate is 50 gas more expensive than the other two options, than the Twilight Council and the Robo Facility, Reynor, just by seeing the delay right there on that upgrade, already knows that this is very likely going to be a Stargate opener here from Harstem. I honestly don't mind seeing it at all. No. Then again, though, the reason why my observing kind of sucked right there in the last half minute or so of that previous game is that suddenly a lot of things went wrong for Harstem, all at the same time. In my mind, right, Reynor is overall the stronger player. And it's those little things. He's very fast. So I mention this pretty much every single Reynor cast that I do, but the guy is incredibly quick on the keyboard. One of the absolute fastest players I've ever seen play StarCraft 2. He, together with probably Clem. Some of the absolute fastest players in the world. And they're very good, usually, at creating loads of problems for you to fix at a short amount of time, right? And because of that, you start slipping up on, for example, that Prism control. It's absolutely critical if Harstem wants to be competitive in this series that he does not make a series of errors like that once again. Because you lose a few Templar here, you lose a couple probes there, you lose the Prism. That's game over. You cannot afford to make such errors at this level of play. Like, maybe one of the three is okay, right? Maybe just the probes and not the Templar and not the Prism. Sure. Maybe just the Prism. Actually, I really hate the Prism going down. It's one of my Protoss pet peeves. Whenever I see the Prism going down, it physically hurts a little bit. But you know what I'm saying? Like, when you lose all three of those things, it's really rough. Yeah. Especially after the early game didn't quite entirely go your way when it could have gone your way. A bit frustrating. Anyways, after just a single Oracle in this match, though, so that Oracle has been dancing back and forth, not really achieving all too much, it's a very quick Twilight Council on the back of this. So Harstem going for the Glaive Adepts, which is a build that has been making, well, I don't want to say really a comeback, because it never really went anywhere, but it's once again become very popular over the last few months. Yeah, it is one of those threats, I guess, that hits like a truck, with a lot of Zerg players now also skipping the Roach Warren. If you skip the Roach Warren, you can just simply straight up lose against this particular start, and a lot of Zerg players do try to cut a corner, right? It's not the most expensive structure in the world, but yeah, you gotta think of it as essentially like 4 drones in total. So it's pretty pricey, all things considered, and Zergs really try to be as greedy as possible, and Well, in this particular case, we do have a Roach Warren, but it's not done just yet, and the Adepts are already showing up. This is super quick. Considering the Stargate opener, this is some of the fastest resonating glaives that I've seen. That's the attack speed upgrade, by the way. Reynor decided to wall himself in fully. Love to see that. Really cool. These drones, though, still in a lot of trouble. And honestly, with this amount of Adepts, you can even consider fighting some of the Queens. I don't think that's the best control on these Adepts. I think they could have done a little bit more. A couple of them were just kind of derping around. We've kind of bruised up the hatchery a bunch, but that doesn't really hurt the Zerg player all too crazy much. A few drones, I guess, were sacrificed to become these evolution chambers. Okay, now he does decide to commit. Shades in on a bunch of those roaches. At the same time, though, we have a shade in as well on the left. Maybe this can justify it all a little bit. Shot on the Queen there, sadly. Depths once again, forced to retreat, and I'm not in love with it. The problem is, right? You can kind of see this as like a football match, right? The ball right now is back on Reynor's side. He gets to do whatever he pleases for the next couple minutes, because this is one of those attacks where after Protoss executes it, they're basically gonna sit back for a while. And Reynor knows this. He's already droning while he's still putting out fires. Yeah, he did lose 12 workers, but he also did kill 14 Adepts. And cost efficiency-wise, that alone is already not really justifying it. But even if he did kill, I don't know, 20 workers, I still wouldn't love it. Because right now, Reynor is left to do whatever he likes for the next few minutes. And what he likes to do is power up, right? So drones are coming. We've got ourselves a lair here. One cheeky Adept's still going around. And actually, the drone count is sort of growing a little bit. Fair enough. Good crisis management right there from the Zerg. I was gonna say, I would be so tempted to now just use these Evos. Even if I wasn't originally planning on doing it. You gotta at least, well, not feel so bad about making 2 additional ones for really no apparent reason here in the end. Imagine if Reynor did re-wall himself perfectly, though. Something that we see Mr. Cyril do all the time. I do love the addition right now of that second Oracle. Getting a bunch more workers worth. Yeah. So now we are coming up on the 20 mark. Guess a few more Adepts as well, but this is still a little bit tricky for sure. Stargate on the back it is. The Zerg Stargate, that is. The Spire. It's gonna allow Mutas, right? So Mutas here are a very dangerous unit. However, if Harstem picks up on it with maybe like a Revelation in the main base, or for example an Observer, although I don't think we have one of those just yet, there is certainly a chance that he's going to be able to defend it. But you can kind of see here how suddenly Harstem is the one playing defensively. And he's doing a great job getting that Nexus going here. That's the 4th. He's going into Colossus, Extended Thermal Lens, Blink. We have the +1 ground weapons here as well. He's going for all the right tools against a ground-based Zerg. Now, Reynor will be ground-based, but he will also have Mutas. And about 10 Mutas flapping around the map, incredibly annoying. They can kill this mineral line in a heartbeat. They can kill this one after it. They can dart on over here. They can go up to the 4th. Sometimes what we see is the Mutas going across the map and that triggering almost like an all-in. Because Protoss realizes, oh crap, I can't really hold on against it. And sometimes that still goes in favor of the Protoss, but we're coming up on a very dicey moment. I think this 12 o'clock base is not going to happen for now. I don't think Reynor really wants to jump it, and he is forced to actually make a round of Ravagers here. Which is not really what he wants to do when, well, you've got a Spire coming. And he does go for the +1 flyer upgrade here before any Mutas. 2 Colossi coming up all at the same time. He is prepared to make a large round of Mutas here. We've got loads of money in the bank here, Reynor. I think he's waiting for Overlords? Okay, there we go. 10 Mutas all at once. Colossus here gets spotted, but that honestly is kind of a nice feeling as the Zerg. When you know they're making Mutas, or they're like when you're making Mutas and you see them making a Colossus, you're like, oh, well that's not the end of the world. I can deal with that. Maybe Muta Roach would not be a bad choice, although usually, right, we don't see Mutas being used as a fighting unit against the opponent's army. So they're very much so worker harassment only. But yeah, when Protoss doesn't have the largest number of Stalkers, I mean, it is possible. Once you go up to like 20 Mutas here, I think you can start fighting those units straight up. This is scary though, because now a lot of Reynor's supply is dedicated to the counterattack. Does he have enough to push back these Protoss units? The Biles actually are very nice. Now a Muta will get spotted, and that is gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be putting a bit of a timer right here. A lot of these units immediately are gonna end up going down, although a very nice battery overcharge. It's gonna buy him a bunch of time. Okay, Banelings. Ooh, good set of force fields as well. Crisis there. Maybe not quite as clean as we would have liked to see, but now the Zerglings and the Mutas are going to town on one of the bases, and this is what I'm talking about, man. That base is, by the way, still alive at the 12 o'clock position, maybe not for much longer. Adepts over here coming in as well, but not targeting any drones. Third Nexus itself right now in a world of trouble. As long as Reynor can clean up any of the units that march up towards the high ground, I think he's gonna be fine. He's not done yet with his worker harassment. Mutas right now have been split off from the Zerglings. Zerglings are going up towards that base to the left of the third. Stalkers here do manage to get underneath. Maybe they get a bit of damage done. Colossus over here, still dealing a lot of damage, but this is gonna be more probes. As soon as Reynor starts targeting stuff down, that is gonna be a lot more workers falling. When it rains, it pours, man. That is... Again, many different fires all at the same time. Harstem is handling most of them very well, but not everything. It's not, by the way, that Harstem is a slow player by any stretch of the imagination, right? It's not like you ever want to call 340 average actions per minute slow. It's just slower. I guess that's a better way to look at it. Okay, now I do love these additional Phoenixes here. Yeah, the Phoenixes outrange Mutas. Although, if the Mutas manage to get in range, obviously they will basically one-shot it. Here comes the rest of the Zerg army. Do we have enough force fields? Just barely enough, although immediately corrosive balls do land. I think a couple of them may have also landed on a few of those Banes. Now the Mutas are thinking about coming in from the back. A lot of Zerglings, +2 melee, just about to finish up. Maybe Reynor should have waited for that one. But the Mutas, okay, they decide to dive the Colossi right now. Corrosive Biles pushed over here in the back. Mutas do manage to get out of there, but he decides to sack the Mutas here because the Phoenix numbers are growing. And when the Mutas are gone, the Phoenixes will have nothing to do. 12 additional probes go down. GG. Reynor wins game number 2 with excellent multitasking. Next up, we find ourselves on the map Hard-Lit. Yeah, this is kind of going the way that I had anticipated it. I mean, a lot of people recommended this series to me, so I'm assuming we're gonna get at least a little bit of fighting power here as well out of Harstem. But so far, and again, I don't mean this with any disrespect, he's getting outclassed. His opponent is simply playing faster, playing cleaner, and just... yeah, a few percentage points better here and there, right? It's just the little things that add up. Over the course of a game of StarCraft 2, and you can see the Reynor is really not skipping a beat. He sees an opportunity and he punishes his opponents for it immediately. Alright, well there's the Metabolic Boost upgrade coming up. Triple hatch opener once again by Reynor. He was forced to go for his third base as his very first expansion here. Mostly because, well, there was a probe blocking the natural, but eventually that natural will be coming up. Twilight Council here straight up this time around. So, no Stargate or anything along those lines. We do have a Stalker on the back of this. Did the Overlord actually get a... Yep, the Overlord actually did get a Scout, so Reynor knows exactly what he's playing against. But this may very well come at the cost of the OV, although I don't think so. It's a very large Hydralisk over there. No, Reynor now knows what he's likely going to be playing against. I would assume that this is once again going to be Glaives, but maybe not. Hello, we need 100 gas. There it is. And he starts up the Chrono. Just a few gas short right there as soon as that finished up. So this is going to be straight up 4 Gateway Glaved Adepts. I'm not sure if I'm in love with it, but there is definitely a chance that this can catch Mr. Reynor off guard. With 4 gateways, you essentially have to use it aggressively. But he is still gonna go for a nice and quick third Nexus here, all things considered. That's an interesting one. So he's warping at Adepts. Most of the time with a Twilight Council opener, we do see a third base a bit later than this one. Although, okay, well maybe that's the reason as to why. Reynor, just with his defensive group of Zerglings, yeah, managed to delay that base for a little bit longer. At this point, it's also pretty clear that this will be an Adept follow-up, right? Because that's the only unit that's getting warped in. Reynor decided to go for a very quick Roachborn. I don't know the exact timing, but if I were to make a guess, probably about 3.5 minutes. So this is now an opener, though, where Harstem doesn't really need to deal a lot of economical damage. Unless he loses the third Nexus again. That would be a disaster. Any worker kills that he gets right now, really, really nice. Wonder if maybe he should have committed. Instead, he decides to target the queens. Okay, you know what? I kind of like that. Yeah, when you're not really needing to do economical damage, this is something that can work out really nicely for you, because it slows down the advancement of the Zerg quite a bit. One drone for some reason. Or, sorry, one adept. Maybe we should have done two, but ultimately, quite a few workers end up going down. Can we snipe a few more? There we go. If he finds these... Oh, he should have cancelled. Anyways, 6 drones have gone down. Now the drones in the main base, though, are also gonna have to run away from their mineral line for just a moment. And this is actually turning into a wonderful opening right now for Harstem. Yep. For the first time, I think we can consider this an advantage for him. And he's not done yet. I think the cannon rush was also a major advantage. That one was honestly in the bag, but little mistakes can lead to very big results. Now, the problem is, though, when you don't go for a Stargate into a Twilight Council, roaches marching across the map are very hard to stop. Now, I'm a little surprised Reynor does decide to turn back around. I think he must have seen this big warp in of more adepts. All right, yeah. Harstem needs to occupy this Zerg on this side of the map. He's currently mid-robo transition, so the robo is coming up. He needs like a couple units at the very least to properly deal with all of this. So the dancing over here and almost like the non-committal adept shades are very important. Like if he sees an opportunity, he should jump it, but he also needs to be careful that he doesn't accidentally like trigger the entire hive, you know, to start moving out. You want a few of the roaches to trickle in and out of this base. But if you see an opportunity, yeah, you might want to jump it. Ooh, instant Robo Bay as well. Can we at least go an Immortal? We do. I think we want to go Twilight... Or, sorry, I think we want to go Disruptors on the back of this. A good choice, but also a bit of a risky one, because they are literally very hit or miss. I don't know if we would have gas for, like, double Robo Immortal instead. That would also be a choice. Look at the amount of units currently waiting, though, for defense. It's not really looking that scary. Then again, though, any sort of opportunity here for Reynor to really go for a big counterattack, I think, yeah, I think the door's been shut down on that. Okay, that was a nice hide on those roaches. Miscontrol on the adepts, it's gonna hurt. Most of them end up falling here before really dealing any damage. Okay. Lovely play right here by Reynor. Trying his best to make a bad, or make a good situation out of a bad one. Once again, using that speed of his to his advantage, but there's no denying that this time around, he is in a pretty tricky spot. Protoss is going to be taking a 4th Nexus around the time that we also see a 4th hatchery coming up in a mirrored location on the other side of the map. Oh, it's actually Colossus. Really? Okay. That's a bit of an interesting one to me. I thought maybe he's very concerned about like the big roach counterattack, which usually happens after you go for the adepts, but I guess the adepts that he's had shading around after the initial wave of adepts, I guess they have bought enough time to just, yeah, be comfortable here instead. You still have to be careful, though, about a Muta transition here once again. So maybe that's what this hallucinated Phoenix is currently looking for. It was unscouted in the first game. That's a nice scout. Seeing the infestation pit also sort of immediately means that there's not going to be Mutas. So I think that's a happy scout right there for Mr. Harstem. Usually an infestation pit here for the Protoss would mean that it's going to be a hive and then into the Viper instead. So the Viper is a very good choice against any sort of Robo Bay play. But this ultimately gives Harstem a lot more time. And if he gets time, he can obviously also set up an attack. So as long as he knows when to move out against any potential Viper transitions, he should be okay. He's going to have like a minute or two. Where, yeah, he can judge exactly what he wants to go for. Tunneling Claws coming up, by the way, here for Reynor, together with Burrow. Interesting. I don't think I'm in love with it, but it can definitely catch a Protoss player off guard, because they rarely play against it. But maybe that's all. Are we moving without an observer? Oh, we don't have an observer at all. Ooh. Ooh, I would love this with, like, a Revelation or an observer or something like it. Instead, we march very deep onto the creep. Ay. Colossus just barely stays alive, but that is why we bring an observer. Not only for the, well, the creep clearing, but also for the vision. There's finally an observer showing up. That's the little mistakes you're not really permitted to make against Reynor. Like, he sees that opportunity and bam, he's right there. Right? Like, you have to be tight with your gameplay. A depth shade in over here. I do like this. Okay, this is dealing a lot of damage. Ooh. Okay. There's the Hive together with the Lurker Den. Tunneling Claws is gonna finish up though momentarily here for Reynor. So that's allowing those roaches to tunnel underground and they grow little spikes. Like they will gel their hair in 5 seconds. Look at them gelling their carapace, I guess is a better way to put it. You see? Wow! Very cool. I used to have those as well when I was a kid for a little while, okay? It was very popular in the Netherlands. I had like a big pot of gel. Like I would gel my hair and then twirl up the little spikes. I felt like the coolest kid in school. Anyways, those roaches, definitely the coolest kids as well in this Zerg army right now as they manage to tunnel towards the natural expansion. They're gonna be in the main base. They're gonna be over at the third. This is so annoying to have to deal with. Suddenly, there's also a big push over here towards the front. Can Harstem deal with this army while also clearing out the roaches? That's the big question. So far, 11 probes have gone down. Stalkers in the main base. Okay, very handy. The stasis, the photon cannons and the shield batteries. Still very handy here as well, right? They weren't originally made to deal with, like, tunneled roaches, but they're still gonna be kind of nice. Looks like the observer, by the way, was not paying very close attention, and a few roaches did manage to sneak away. Prism in the bottom left-hand corner. I think that Prism could certainly be going into the base right now of the Zerg. Like, I'm always thinking, like, what would somebody, like... You know, whenever you see somebody play, right? What would the strongest player of that one race be doing at this given moment? I can guarantee you, if this was MaxPax playing, this Prism would be everywhere. Like, this Prism would be warping in Zealots left, right, and center. You would see the drones running over here, drones running over there, drones... You would see a lot of chaos all around the map. We don't need to commit all the Stalkers there to the run-by, right? To the, I guess, the tunnel-by? Is that a better word? Anyways, we don't need 20 Stalkers to deal with, like, 10 roaches, right? It's not really... It's a little imbalanced overall. I'm not saying it's too powerful, okay? I'm not saying it's nerfed. It's imbalanced. Anyways. There's multiple uses of that word. There's an abduction. Missed on, one Colossus, but he's actually trying to harpoon down those Immortals instead. That's an interesting one. Not usually what we see, but it makes sense. Zerglings here managed to get in. Lovely play here once again by Reynor. Very good movement here as well, though, by Harstem, who actually decides to dive on the Lurkers there for just a moment. Lurkers have a hard time repositioning them. There's that Prism in the main base. Looks like it will end up going down, but not before finishing the warp in. 17 drones have just fallen. Zerglings still in the main base to try and be a nuisance. Roach over here as well on the left side of the map, but they are currently burrowed. Natural expansion here is down. Okay, this was some fantastic movement here by the Protoss player. Reynor wants to go up towards this high ground, but it's a dangerous one. Okay. That's why we harpooned those Immortals, I suppose, to try and make sure that those Colossi... to try and make sure that this Protoss army couldn't just move into all of the Lurkers. This is a very expensive decision, though, here by Harstem. Yeah, he's killing a ton of economy. 28 drones have gone down. It feels a little too risky to me. Okay, we're gonna recall. I think recalling and reconsidering some of this, not a bad idea. Yeah. Zealots in the meantime as well. Okay, now this I love to see. On the right side of the map, over at the 3 o'clock position, tearing up a base. Hydras are coming up right now, but they are no match against the Zealots. Now, one thing I've seen Harstem do very nicely the last few times that I've casted his games was focus heavily on a ground-based army against Lurkers. Most Protoss players, 45 drones, by the way, have gone down. That's insane. Great work right there by the Dutchman. Most Protoss players are terrified of Lurkers. They do not want to face off against Lurkers with a ground-based army. But look at Harstem doubling down. Look at the Immortal Archon count. We have Storm as well, right? Yeah, we certainly do. This is more than a formidable army right now to take on the Zerg. Still, though, very risky, right? Because all Zerg really needs to do is just grow the Lurker count. More Lurkers here equals more better. But there might just be an opportunity here where Harstem can once again slice those Lurkers in half, Make it difficult for them to get to the high ground. Snipes one of them. Okay, gets a bit of damage done as well. As long as the Observer is hanging out over here, I think we should be okay. Vipers are ready to start, well, dealing some damage. As long as the High Templar, though, are in the right position. I really would love to see, yeah, a few feedbacks going down as well. There come the Vipers. Can we get a feedback? Okay, he's already clicked on it, but he decided to move away. Once again, good blink forward. Beautiful. Excellent feedbacks. Misrally to Immortal there. Not quite ideal, but at the same time, we have some harassment over here. Zealots are trying to deal a little bit of damage over on the 3 o'clock position, but that's not going to happen this time around, as Lurkers have been occupying that area too. Beautiful zoning here with those Templar. Yep. Getting another Storm as well, bruising more and more of those units. Zerglings going in for the counterattack, but Harstem, okay, has got his bases covered. There's an opportunity here for the Protoss to win. I think he could start pushing through this if he wants to, but obviously he doesn't know exactly how many Lurkers there are, and it is always a little bit terrifying. Backing up, certainly not a bad idea, especially when you have this much money in the bank. Maybe come back after like 1 or 2 additional Warpins instead. I would love to see some additional Archons here in the mix. Because we have so much gas. 2,000 gas is a lot. 2,000 gas and not maxed out is not quite optimal. Probably the reason why Harstem decides to, yeah, chill it a little bit. Decides to go into the +1 air weapons as well as a Stargate. So the Skytools transitioning is, or the Skytools transition rather, is starting up. I don't know if he needs it, but maybe with a bit of miss macro, it is the best choice. Okay. Reynor manages to hold on though by the skin of his teeth. Keep in mind that his natural is still gone. That base over here is still gone as well. He's making himself look like he's got a lot of stuff, but he's basically broke. I think Reynor's best choices are probably just to go for an all-in, which is not a reason for Harstem to back off. He doesn't really need to be fighting on creep when he knows that this fight could be taking place, well, close to his static defense here instead. Protoss has now split up their army though. Zerglings managed to run into the main base as well as the natural expansion, but photon cannons are set up everywhere and zealots can be warped in. Rather than engaging the lurkers, Harstem decides to go for a full-on counterattack, which is a very brave decision. This base over here is gonna be in a world of trouble. Main base is gonna get destroyed as well. Reynor taps out, and it's Harstem who wins game number 3. Next up, we find ourselves on, as a famous caster once called it, Alcyone. Probe right there trying to blend in with the drones for just a moment, but he managed to already block that expansion, and Reynor was forced to take the third base once again. Now, this map... Oh, really? Huh. I have not actually seen anyone mine these minerals from the back. So you only really have access to a small amount of them, and this gets scouted immediately by Harstem. So you could mine out the mineral field and then build the hatcher over there instead. That's... So you can only mine like 4 mineral fields, right? There's no hole over here, even though it looks like a drone should be able to fit. It can't. Obviously, you can destroy the rocks, I guess, and make it a bit easier, but that's a very interesting position right there on the base. I don't think you really address this with any particular attention here as Protoss at all. I think you just sort of let the Zerg shoot themselves in the foot, because this really doesn't look particularly good. But I'm sure Reynor has been practicing this, and he's decided to go for this, well, for some particular reason. Even though I'm having questions for now. Stargate. Gonna be going for 1 Oracle, 2 Oracle. We're gonna be going for a 3rd Nexus here as well. That one should be coming up within the next 10 seconds or so. The Zerglings are gonna try. This could just be an all-in as well from Harstem. Or sorry, from Reynor rather. Or we could make a macro hatch over here and make this one, I guess, ultimately the macro. Yeah, it's a bit funky. Normally we don't see a macro hatchery from Zerg until at least 3 base saturation. So the fact that he... This is not optimal. There's no way. You just don't have... I want to believe, but it's so weird. So you can now sort of mine this, but these drones, say you mine this mineral field, they're gonna have to make that trip all the way back, and ultimately, I don't think you really get the economy boost you're thinking you're getting. Now, the Spore Crawler also can't really cover this all. Alright. There's the Forge, coming up once again. I'm assuming we're gonna have a Twilight Council momentarily. We're actually gonna go for a Foracle. Fair enough. I actually don't mind it in this particular case. I think it's a good idea. I've mentioned this many times. I kind of feel like multiple Oracles after the 3 is also pretty good, especially if Zerg is almost forced to play a Roach Ravager based. Maybe this is a Queen Walk? That could be. So maybe Reynor wants to go for a Queen Walk, and obviously by putting down the hatchery over here, he's also going to be able to spread that creep very aggressively. Because right now, the third of the Protoss is really only just barely towards the other side of the map. There's still no lair started up here for the Zerg. He's going into a couple drones once again. Interesting. Yeah, so the creep advantage, I guess, is quite significant. It's a little bit difficult to quantify. But yeah, creep spread in the direction of the Protoss' third this aggressively is really nice. Oracles, by the way, once again flying in. 7 workers have been going down here so far. Once again, we're gonna go charge first. We have the +1 ground weapons, a robo facility here on the back of it. I'm assuming we're gonna be going into the good old Immortal. Yep. Reynor is pretending to go for a Queen March, while not really going for a Queen March, which is also a strange situation. Yeah, so he's almost forcing out more Oracles, because this really does look like a Queen March, but he's droning behind it. So there's about 700 IQ mind games going on in this match, where Reynor purposefully playing a build that looks like a build, but then it doesn't really quite play out like a build, and then he pretends to be going for one build, but it's actually a macro game instead. If your head is spinning, I would... Yeah, I get it. I mean, ultimately, though, sure, this is confusing to Harstem. But Harstem can also just play 98% of his normal game. He doesn't really need to get fancy about it. So maybe he makes a few adjustments by, for example, going up to 5 Oracles. But I don't think Protoss players really hate that. Pretty darn good, actually. Templar Archives coming up. Charge is going to finish here in just a moment. I think Harstem could just go for a big attack. He will have to tiptoe around the creep for a little bit, because that creep is already covering like 80% of the playable space. But other than that, I don't think he really has to do too much. He could just go for a normal push. 4th Nexus here instead is going down. Okay. Reynor has decided to go for the base over here at the bottom of the map too. Not mining out any of the mineral fields yet. Wouldn't mind seeing one drone dedicated to just slowly mining all of this out, because that would create a lot more maneuverability right here for these units. Maybe one advantage of mining it like so, right, and getting this base super early is that it also runs out fast. So that way you create a lot more movement here in this section of the map. Although I don't think Zerg really struggles getting units from the right to the left. As soon as Harstem tries to move out onto the map, though, to do a little bit of creep clearing, immediately the hive comes buzzing out. Extra gas is immediately taken on the right side of the map. Storm coming up here for the Protoss as well. And a Phoenix. Yeah. This could definitely be a Muta transition once again. Although it is definitely a bit of a funky one. I understand that Harstem has decided to maybe give that a try. Or at least consider it. Even just one Phoenix kind of helps out. When you already have Blink and... Well, he doesn't have Blink yet, but when you do go into Blink, which would be a natural transition here, you have Storm, you have Archons. Mutas do become a lot more manageable. If you're really scared, you could make a Photon Cannon in each mineral line, but that does get a little bit pricey. Okay, Harstem once again. Moving out into the map. There is a Photon Cannon, by the way. Yeah. I think, yeah, Harstem is a little concerned here about a potential Muta threat, so it's not coming. But it is something that is in the back of his mind. Here's the Baneling numbers, though. 34 Banelings, 24 more. We're gonna have tons of them available. Reynor is now maxed out. +2 melee? A little bit trailing behind. I don't think he has time to wait for that. Stasis wards are being set up. Not triggered just yet. Okay, there's one of them. Good Storm. Does Harstem have enough? Those storms are gonna have to be on point. His economy is tremendous. Can we do another? There you go, good. Here come the banelings. Keep in mind that they are a little bit weaker now and they die significantly faster. Woo, that 5 HP nerf is really coming into the mix there. Beautiful. Beautiful hold right there by Harstem. Excellent work. Yeah, he does lose the Templar, sure. But that was a very committed push there from Mr. Reynor. In the meantime, okay, Zealot warping in the main base of the Zerg player too. Very nice. Harstem going toe-to-toe right here with Reynor in a straight-up macro game. Not really skipping a beat. Not really allowing himself to be caught off guard by this weird gold. Just plays his own game. Continues practicing what he, or playing rather, what he has been practicing. There's the fleet beacon together with a Stargate, so gonna be going double Stargate. I know Harstem is a big fan of Tempest, but I don't know if he should be going Tempest here. I wouldn't mind seeing him making a straight transition towards carriers instead. Although I have to see. Prism still harassing. Beautiful stuff. 8 additional Zealots also being warped in. Doubling down. So what are we gonna make? Fleet Beacon here is done. Double Stargate. We've got money for carriers. I think that's the right call. Queen's, by the way, pushing that back. Yep, there it is. Okay, carriers indeed are coming. I think that's an excellent choice. More Banelink. So basically, Reynor is gonna go for more of the same. Maybe this is the game that triggered him to unhotkey his Banelinks, man. Maybe that's... This could be the game. How many Storms do we have? 4 Templar. I think most of them have energy for maybe... Yeah, just a single Storm. Okay. Zealots, though, still going to town. Love to see it. Zealots in the main base, also not misplaced. Just buy time until the carriers are out. Yeah, if the carriers can get their interceptors going. So this is excellent. This is really good here by Harstem. Getting those interceptors going, producing more of them. Slowly building up that death bowl. This is essentially Reynor sticking around on a tier 1 army. And this is Harstem going for the ultimate late game force, right? That he can really make. At least a late game force that still has ground units in the mix. This should be a much easier hold than the first wave. Now the carriers get spotted. Beautiful storm over here on the right. Looks like the natural expansion has also been plugged up very nicely. Archons are, well, dying, but they're killing so many Banelings in the process. UGGU is caught somehow by Reynor. I don't know how he managed to do that, but it's Harstem who wins game number 4. Alrighty. And that takes us to the rubber match. We find ourselves on the map Solaris. And what was previously looking like a clean 3-0 win for Reynor is now looking like a series where Harstem has momentum on his side. So 2-2 is the score. It all comes down to this particular game right over here. I still think overall Reynor is looking just ever so slightly better in the macro games. But in game number 4 he kind of shot himself in the foot a little bit. I wasn't a huge fan of that particular strategy. Yeah, maybe just play a normal game. Just the most normal of normal games you can play. I think that's probably a good call. The Adepts in game number 3 obviously were very frustrating too for him to deal with. Excellent play there by Harstem. But Harstem set himself up for a very good mid and late game in game number 3. And Reynor never really got going as much. I think if somehow, some way, Reynor can just do an early game that transitions towards a standard mid game, I think ultimately he should be able to outpace his opponent in a regular macro match. Only time will tell here. Standard openers once again from both players, as we do have the Twilight Council. Harstem essentially going for the same build that he did in game number 3, I think. Which is a bit of a dangerous move, I'm not gonna lie. On this map though, it's difficult for the Zerg to figure out exactly what's happening. So that Overlord is all the way over there. It's once again a Stalker. Obviously Reynor is going to be able to adjust based off of what he's seen throughout the rest of this series. So this does look identical, if I'm not mistaken, at least from the Zerg's point of view, to that game number 3. Is he going to be able to pick up on that though? Because in game number 3 he did have a very quick Roach Warren. There's once again that lair, or not the lair, sorry. There's once again that Nexus going down, the 3rd. Roach Warren comes up in the main. Glaive though, yeah, it's already almost done. So the Glaive Adepts are gonna be able to deal so much damage. I really do like this, actually. So, most of the time, whenever I criticize a Twilight or a Robo start for Protoss, it's mostly based off of the fact that it's difficult for them to take a third. But now Harstem is doing a Twilight Council-based opener where he does take a nice and quick third on the back of it as well. Just needs to deal with the Zergling counterattack. Roach Warren at this point is done. Reynor needs to do a better job dealing with those Adepts. This map, by the way, has those speed-up circles as well, so the Adepts do show up very quickly, but keep in mind this is not going to be an Adept push with a Prism or anything like that, so it's difficult here for the Protoss player to reinforce this. Okay, targeting Queens once again. Adepts are going to shade, okay. Queens are trailing way behind this. Roaches are popping out of their cocoons right now, though. Lovely block off right there by Reynor with that Evolution Chamber. Just buying time here, forcing those Adepts to go all the way around. Okay. Adepts over here as well at the third. Good crisis management, though, here by Reynor. Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, 9 Adepts, 26 Zerglings, 2 drones. This is a really good beginning here for Reynor. Again, the ball right now is in his court. He gets to do whatever he likes. So I think playing just good old Lair into an Evo Chamber is an excellent choice. I don't think going into a Spire this time around is necessary. Just playing a quintessential normal game is probably the better choice. So Hydra then into, for example, Lurkers and Vipers. I think that's probably the most likely choice here from the Italian Zerg. Harstem in the meantime, doing a similar transition once again. We've got an Immortal. Okay, another Immortal will be building. I wouldn't mind seeing like a second follow-up, like a second layer to this aggression of his. So these sentries are already accumulating energy. Yeah, the follow-up Adept Shades are not really achieving much. There's the Spire, okay. So Reynor does decide to commit to, once again, a build that does require a little bit of luck. The thing is, he knows that there are sentries here, and if the sentries decide to use an hallucination, there is certainly a chance for, well, the Protoss here to scout it. Or, if Harstem goes for a big attack right now, he can hit the Zerg before the Mutas are out. He's got a Prism, he's got, well, the Prism is coming anyways. He's got 2 Immortals here and a good army in general. Creep spread once again, by the way, very far out. We don't have an Observer in the mix yet, and he's once again stepping deep onto the creep. This is certainly a little bit risky, but I think avoiding an all-out macro game with Reynor is probably the right call. Where's that Prism? Okay, it's coming as fast as it can, flying through the green circles. Yeah, knocking down these rocks is not really gonna achieve too much. Can we warp? Warp, 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 warp. There we go. We have, no, 8 gateways. I was gonna say, why are we warping only 3 units in? Okay. Harstem goes up towards the high ground. 1,200 resources in the bank. I think maybe they were on cooldown or something like that. This is too slow. Like, this feels so slow to me. Like, he stepped on creep like 2 minutes ago. At least that's what it seemed like. And Reynor has been making defensive units ever since. Now, he can still certainly deal a lot of damage. The problem is, Adepts really aren't that great of a unit anymore at this stage in the game. One thing, though, that is going really well is Adepts, yeah, dealing a bunch of damage. 15, 16 drones right now have gone down. That's dealing a lot more damage than his main army here at the front. Adepts now shade on over towards that base. Okay, that's lovely. Would it be possible to maybe have Charge here in the mix, or maybe even Blink, rather than these Adepts? I'm not exactly sure how it lines up. We'd probably have to cut out at least a sentry or 2. 30 drones, though. Lovely plays right here by Mr. Harstem, finding himself with full 3-base saturation against the Zerg, who barely has enough workers for only 2. Drones are transferring towards the base over on the right side of the map. This has not been scouted yet by Harstem, but he must have seen the drone transfer. Prism does stay alive for now. There's the Blink coming up as well. Okay, I thought this was actually a push, where Harstem was meaning to win the game with his main army. But that really wasn't the goal. I think that was a bit of a misread from me, and maybe from Reynor as well. Oh, Observer a little too overeager. This was really just a push to enable Adepts to deal economical damage. Or at the very least, that's what it turned out to be. Yep. 38 drones have gone down. But, and that's the saving grace right here for Reynor. This is not really a Protoss army that can continue attacking. So ultimately, he does get a little bit of time here to breathe and to potentially stabilize. Reynor is a player who's very strong when it comes to playing from behind. He does still have that prism, if I'm not... Or sorry, that prism, the spire here. Or did I call it earlier? A Stargate? Okay. Apparently I'm just miscalling names now. But I think that's, yeah, certainly something he can... Maybe that also explains this Stargate, actually. Yeah, Harstem must have seen it with the Adepts when they were shading around. That explains it. He's looking to see if there are any mutas available at this point in the game. But yeah, notice here how he now does have to sit back. Second Stargate coming up. Blink together with the +1 ground weapons here as well. This is a lot of time, though, that Protoss is now giving the Zerg. And you can see Reynor using that larva mechanic to his advantage. He is powering out drones. Now 9 mutas are coming. If these mutas can deal any sort of damage on the other side of the map, Reynor definitely does still have a chance when it comes to coming back in this game. Like, keep in mind, yeah, all those drones fell. Sure, 42 workers, that's a ton. But 48 Adepts were not free. That's actually still, economically speaking, a very playable situation right now for Reynor. Even though, like, we see this go wrong for Protoss all the time, where they're like, I have killed all the workers, and it's been amazing. How did Zerg still manage to come back? Well, it turns out you lost everything. Like, yeah, you killed all the drones, but you also lost everything that you used to deal that damage. So it's easy here for Protoss to also maybe overestimate their situation, as now Reynor is once again ready to go for a move out. He was up with his back against the wall just a couple minutes ago, but he's managed to get away from it. And now he can start the multitasking. Disruptor over here would be awesome. Reynor on top of that. Mutas in the meantime going into the main base. They are greeted, however, by a bunch of Phoenixes. These mutas, essentially pointless. At least with good control, mutas should not be able to get any damage in anymore. Lovely work right there by Harstem. Yep, Reynor probably regretting making these mutas altogether now. Infestation Pit coming up, Baneling speed and +2 melee finish up. Keep in mind that the probes are no longer gonna get one-shot anymore by the Baneling. But I guess if you have enough of them, they can still deal damage. Harstem, however, okay, pretending like this is a watchtower. It's a speed-up circle. Not gonna be able to deal that much damage, but he's gonna go after a few of these Ravagers. Very nice. Lovely work. Ravagers are real expensive, guys. One of them ends up going down, one of the Phoenixes, that is. Fleet Beacon, okay. Did we? Hold up. Sorry, he did pull the probes there, but... Okay, nah, it was actually a good pull. Don't know what happened, why we didn't pull all the probes, but anyways. Ultimately, 3 workers there for that many Banelings. Also a very good exchange. Alright. Everything is going Harstem's way right now. Massive amount of Banelings here as well on the right side of the map once again. This is starting to look pretty desperate here for Reynor. Yeah, he's got a good economy, I guess. Yeah, he's got some decent tech, but nothing amazing. Like, he's still behind in essentially every aspect, despite the fact that the supply count right now looks a little deceiving. He's not quite at the level of army here that his opponent currently has, so these Banelings really need to start dealing damage. This is not an army that can just sort of be thrown away. They're gonna be running in. Good pull right there by Harstem. In the meantime, mutas are going to town over here, but the Phoenixes are chasing as well. Probes are moving all the way down towards the natural expansion of the Protoss. In the meantime, though, we did have the army over there moving in too, and they're actually going to be engaging this Stalker Bolt from the back. Is there enough right now for Zerg to push through? It does not look like it, but that's still 17 workers falling. I think he should go. I think Harstem, yeah, I think he should put his foot on the gas and go. He does still have the Prism. Don't lose it. No, 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 oh, God. Oh. He needs the Prism. He needs a Prism here to warp in reinforcements. I think this is his time right now to go for an all-in. Instead, we're making Phoenixes. He's gonna rebuild the Nexus, I guess. Oh, that's gonna slow the game down so much, though. So he's gonna be able to kill this base. That's good. But this is not really quite an army that can win without reinforcements. Okay, yeah, instead we rebuild the Nexus right now together with the Templar Archives. Good moves right there by Reynor, of course. Always in position, always hunting the Prism, always being exceptionally fast. Maybe the stress is getting to him a little bit as well. Going north of 600 average actions per minute. That's 10 buttons a second. A couple more Ravagers would be nice. Yeah, alright. That was expensive though for the Zerg, right? Yeah, you can see that reflected immediately in the resources lost. But then again, if Protoss is not gonna put his foot on the gas and go for an all-in, it doesn't matter that much. No, Reynor is gonna be able to rebuild this pretty easily with his superior economy now. Kills that base with Banelings? Okay. Very greedy. In the meantime, Nexus over here on the left side of the map also ends up getting shut down. Harstem wants to go for an all-in. I feel like he's been trying to go for an all-in for like the last 3 minutes, but he's just not getting it going. Every time he moves out, there's Zerglings in the counterattack. Every time he tries to warp in, well, the Prism gets sniped. Okay, that only happened a single time. Ultimately, though, now we're playing against Vipers. This is still an army that has an opportunity here. Is it enough? Corrosive Biles would be nice. Blinding Clouds instead here, by the way. Zerglings now coming in from the back. Banelings dealing so much damage to the clumped up Stalkers. Phoenix is just sort of flying around, and Reynor pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Phenomenal gameplay here over the last 5 minutes by the Italian. It's the Zerg who obtains the victory. What a match.